There we are.
Welcome to the Fane of Fantasy. This channel is all about giving you inspiration to master your craft and create fantasy that will truly immerse your audience. And with everything to do with fantasy and everything to do with storytelling and that sort of thing, we all need to pick up our ideas from somewhere. And to talk to me today about that, I have Jack with me. So maybe you want to say a few words about yourself, Jack?
Yes, I am Jack Mulcahy. I have been a writer as long as I've lived, which is pretty long. And I have been published in several magazines, short fiction. I am working on a novel, and I have also been a newspaper reporter and have written pieces for magazines along the way, nonfiction. That's me.
Cool. So, when it comes to story ideas and that sort of thing, so where do we start with this whole topic, Jack? When it comes to getting story ideas?
Story ideas generally come from the characters, um, who the character is and what the character wants, and how I can keep them from getting what they want. Um, the all the stories I write are interconnected with the novel that I am working on. They're all in the same world. Um, that idea came to me a long time ago from somebody I worked with, who I saw was forced to make decisions that she didn't want to make.
Mm-hmm.
And that was kind of the jumping off point. Um, and along the way, I picked up other influences. Um, I don't know always where the idea is coming from. It just kind of springs into my head.
So, what do you do when do you have any special way of where you record down your ideas, or how, or is it just those ideas that will never leave your head, that those are the ones that you keep, or how do you decide?
I figure if I haven't written it down before it leaves my head, then I really didn't want to write about it anyway. So one way or the other, I jot it down somewhere, or I make a note on the computer or something.
Yeah. Yeah, I'm picking up a lot of echo. Do you have echo on your end?
I don't have echo, no.
Okay. Okay, maybe it's just from here on. I hope you guys watching out there are not picking up echo, but okay. Yeah, I think I mean I have a notepad in my night drawer because usually it happens a lot when early morning or something like that. I'll be half asleep and then something will hit me and then I'll write it down in that notebook. So I have like pages and pages and pages of ideas that will probably take me years and years and years to write, I guess.
Yeah, yeah. That's the way I hear a lot of people do it.
Yeah, but so
I
you,
lose the pages.
yeah, of course that's an issue if you can't find the pages in the first place.
Yeah,
Yeah.
yeah.
So the idea that that you kind of centered on. So how did you develop it? I mean, you were watching your colleague here who were making decisions she didn't want to do and so forth. But how did that evolve into a whole story and that sort of thing?
Well, originally I was doing it as a graphic novel. Um, and I actually did 20 pages of it and looked at it and decided I'm not a good enough artist. I should stick with what I know I do well, which is writing. Um, and how that came about from the perspective of my colleague is a good question, and I wish I had the answer to it. Um, it just kind of cooked in my brain a little bit, and along the way, um, you're too young to remember a porn star named Linda Lovelace, but she wrote an autobiography that told about how she was forced into porn and
Okay.
what happened to her. So some of that some of that had something to do with it too. I am basically, you might call this Robert E. Howard meets Margaret Atwood. Not that I'm either of those two authors, but that's kind of where the thing is going.
Okay. Yeah, I think in general, when it comes to story ideas, I think story ideas is all around us all the time. You know, it is really, to me, it's really a lot about opening your mind to what is going around you, if that is co-workers or even the news or watching movies or whatever it may be. But there is story ideas everywhere. I think so.
Yes, there are ideas everywhere. And a lot of it'll come from me watching somebody and watching what they do and thinking, well, what if they did it this way? Or what if this happened to them? Or, what have you. And before I know it, I've got a story.
Yeah.
I at least have a conflict anyway.
The famous what if questions, right?
Yes. Yeah, exactly. A story is all about conflict and how you deal with it.
Yeah. So when you're dealing with the story ideas and that sort of thing, so how do you decide that, okay, this is like a seed of an idea, but how do you decide that this particular seed is better than another seed you might be having, and so forth? How do you validate which one you're gonna write?
I'm a total pantser. I write by the seat of my pants. So I don't have an outline format as such. So I just write about it, and if it peters out, so be it. There are always more ideas coming, and so if it doesn't go anywhere, it doesn't go anywhere.
So you
But I don't
basically
worry about it.
so you basically just start writing, and then you switch to another idea if the first one didn't work. Is that
Right. Yeah, and I have several things going on at the same time.
Interesting.
Yeah, yeah. Some of which um have been in stasis for a couple of years, and some of them write themselves.
You can keep all the different storylines in your head at the same time. That's not a problem.
No, it's really not. Which I guess means I'm a little schizophrenic or something. But no, I managed to keep the story ideas separate, and I managed to. It helps that they're all related. They're all parts of the same whole.
Yeah, that helps, of course. Yeah.
Yeah. So I have about, I guess I have about a dozen short stories that have appeared in magazines, and that's about 65,000 words so far. And that doesn't seem like a lot, but it's a lot of work. And then um, I have about 150,000 words of the novel finished. And I project it to be somewhere around 250,000 words, somewhere like that. So I have a ways to go, but I keep plugging away at it.
Yeah. So for those watching out there who are also storytellers themselves and wants to come up with story ideas, do you have any good advice for those people? So if they're kind of a bit of stuck or something on how do I get story ideas? I don't know where to start. I don't even I don't feel like I'm getting any story ideas whatsoever. What would you say to those people who are challenged with that?
I have always been a daydreamer, and so a lot of what I do just comes naturally. Um, as far as developing story ideas, I'm not sure what to say to somebody, because I just kind of do it as an organic process, and I don't much think about what I'm doing when I'm doing it. Um, Read a lot, think about what you would do with somebody else's character. That doesn't mean steal, but sometimes as an exercise, you can take a character out of, say, a Hemingway short story that may be a throwaway character in the story, and figure out a story about them. Where do they go out once they walk off stage in Hemingway's story? Where do they go? Um, I find that the more I write, the more ideas come to me. And I have often found that I have been working my way through a plot, and I know there's a problem with the plot coming up, and I don't know how I'm going to solve it. And I just keep on writing, and before I know it, I've gone past the problem, and the problem wasn't really such a big problem after all, and it solved itself in the writing. So there's always you can always do things with writing, um, to get ideas. The number one rule, um, as Robert Heinlein once said, is that you must write. If you Half of the people who say that they're going to write never put a word down, so right away you've got half of your competition is gone. And then you must finish what you write. Half of the people who start things don't finish them, so now your competition is coming down even more. um, you must avoid rewriting. That sounds like a sin, but avoid rewriting except by editorial directive. You should have the basics down pretty well, and if you start over again, you're never going to finish. You must put it on the market. Again, half the people who have gotten through those first three stages don't have the nerve to put it on the market. And then you must keep it on the market until it sells. There's an awful lot of people who think they're not a success because one editor turned them down. And you just have to, writing is a matter of persistence. It's not as much a matter of talent. It's a matter of persistence. And you just have to keep plugging at it and plugging at it and plugging at it until something comes of it, and something will.
Yeah, that's absolutely true. And at the end of the day, it's a marathon. It's not a sprint. Is what I always say. You know, writing is exactly what you said. It's just keeping at it, and also the more you write, the better you will become. And back to the idea part, it's also I also believe what you're saying. The more that you write, the more ideas will come up, because I experienced that myself too. When I'm in the middle of a story, then all of a sudden maybe what is a side character gives me new ideas to another story or something like that. So that works too.
Yes.
Yeah.
That's exactly the way it works.
Yeah. But I also think when it comes to story ideas, and you could tell me what you think about this theory of mine, but I think when you start out writing something, the story idea that you pick has to be something that you can really feel in your bones that you are excited about, because writing a full novel is a massive piece of labor. And if you're not really excited about what you're going to write, that is exactly where I believe that's why people are ending up where you mentioned before, that they will kind of never finish, because at some point the excitement peters out and it becomes work, because it is work to write a novel.
Yep.
And then they will switch and say, oh, okay, I have that other idea, that's funny, so then they'll start writing that, and all of a sudden you have a big pile of unfinished manuscripts in your computer or wherever you store stuff like that, and you never get to the end. I don't know what you think about that.
Right. And if you're laboring over the manuscript, that's going to show in your work. And if you reach a point where you're bored with the story, that's going to show in your work, and your readers are going to pick up on this. So you have to be able to maintain that level of interest and excitement about what you're doing. You have to really believe in order to get it done. Lots of times the writing a book, it goes from being my book to being damn book, and you want to throw it out the window, but somehow you don't.
Yeah, I mean, I often compare it as well to, you know, when you have your day job or whatever, and you go to the office or wherever it is that you go to take care of your job, you need to enjoy what you're doing, but writing is also a job in the sense that it's never going to be every single element of it that you enjoy. So just because you have a good idea and just because you're excited about it, there will be parts of the process where you're thinking, like you said, this damn book, can I just get it over with? But
yeah,
and you have to power through those parts and get to the finish lines, because if you let the ideas guide you all the time and your excitement guide you all the time, I don't believe you will finish much ever.
yeah. And it's all about finishing. It's all about having the perseverance to stick with it and to finish it. Yeah. I had something I was going to talk about, and it just left me. So, oh well.
But okay, but I think you know, as kind of getting into to the last thoughts about ideas and so forth. I think what is interesting is if there's something. Is there something you believe we can do to open ourselves up more to kind of receive inspiration from our surroundings and stuff like that? Is there anything we can do in that regard, do you think?
If there were a process, I'd love to know what it is. Um, I just I just keep I just stay in my head as much as possible. Even when I'm doing something else, I'm thinking in some part of me is thinking about the novel or about a short story I'm working on or something. And you just have to stay in your head as much as possible. That doesn't mean ignore your relatives or pay no attention to your spouse or what have you, but you have to that has to be at the forefront of the things you're doing. The brain can do a whole lot of things at the same time, and sometimes it does things and you're not even aware that it's doing them. Mankind has not built a computer yet that is better than the human brain. It may be faster, but there is nothing like thinking about what you're doing and daydreaming to keep what you're doing fresh.
Mm. Yeah, I also think when it comes to ideas, I think it's also a bit about trying to expose yourself to inspiration, as in, you know, making, as you said earlier on, read, but also, you know, hey, get out of your office once in a while and try to observe other people and what they're, not in a creepy way, but observe people on what they're doing, and maybe ask those good what if questions. Watch some movies, read some books. Travel is a very good thing you can do
Mm-hmm.
to kind of get inspiration from other cultures and stuff like that.
Yes.
Or having YouTube conversations across the Atlantic like this, you know, talking to other people is always a good thing to kind of get other inspiration paths into your life, I think.
Yes, very much so. Anything you can do to keep the flow of information coming in and out is good. And just talking to somebody else may give you an idea that you hadn't thought of. Just using your brain is you get a lot smarter the more you try to use your brain. It's funny how that happens.
Yeah, that works well like that.
Yeah.
Okay. So Jack, when it comes to all this topic around ideas, is there any other things that is important to mention before we finish off, do you think?
It's important to try and write every day. Even if you can only write a paragraph, it's important to keep writing. That's probably the most important thing that I can think of. Everything else will pass you by, but writing every day is just something that's critical. And you also need to read a lot, and not just in your chosen genre. Read a lot of different kinds of things. I read a lot of history. I read a lot of detective novels. I read a lot of whodunits, and I read a lot of fantasy. But you want to keep on reading and writing as much as you can to keep the brain working.
All right. Very, very good, Jack. So thanks for those good words to finish off with. So otherwise, for you guys watching out there, thank you so much for watching. And as you know, you can also support this channel on Patreon. You just check the link below in the description field below. And all there is left to say is stay safe out there, and see you next Monday.